What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown. This is the Heresy Financial Show, and the retail sales numbers came out, and they are starting to show signs of the U.S. economy breaking. We saw a rise in retail sales, but when we break it down by categories, we can see that the American consumer is not strong. And in an economy like the United States economy that basically relies on consumption and spending for the economy to keep chugging along, this is not a good sign. Ready? Let's dive in. All right, let's take a look at the retail sales numbers. We can see that they rose 0.5% in March despite the inflation jump. Remember, it was 8.5% officially, probably much higher. And then import prices hit an 11-year high. That is a big deal as well. So let's take a look here at what's going on. Inflation, obviously, up to its highest level since 1981 here. And then retail sales climbed 0.5%. Now, the first thing that we need to know about this is that in general, when you have inflation, when you have high inflation and in places where you get hyperinflation, one thing that you tend to notice is that sales go through the roof. People start dumping the currency as fast as they can because they're looking around at all the things that they need. And they're saying, hey, I'm going to need food, I'm going to need clothes, I'm going to need these things every single month. So if I get some extra money this month, and I know that next month those things are going to cost me extra, I'm going to buy extra this month. That way I'm getting them at a discount. I'm taking advantage of the current prices and I'm not subjecting myself to the loss of purchasing power. I'm going to load up right now. And so people start to spend their money as fast as they can, basically starting to dump the currency, and you get into this spiral situation where prices start to rise simply because of the extra spending that happens in anticipation of the future rise in prices. That's obviously not the entire story, because if expectations are the only thing happening, then the money runs out and that phenomenon dries up. So expectations aren't the only driver. Expectations of future inflation will cause sustained inflation as long as the money supply growth continues, which, by the way, we've seen the growth in the money supply severely slow down. If you take a look at this chart, we've basically seen all year long this year the total money supply moving completely sideways. We have not seen any major growth in the money supply, especially compared to what we saw in 2020 and 2021. The growth in the money supply has stopped basically because of interest rates going up and the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing program winding down and now turning the corner into quantitative tightening. But people spending their money in advance, knowing that their dollars are going to be losing purchasing power and the things that they need to buy going up in price, that is not the complete story here. We have to break this retail sales number down by category. And if we break it down by category, we can see that the biggest sales came in at gas stations, an 8.9% increase in sales because gasoline prices rose 18% during the period. This sector has seen 37% sales burst over the past year. So we saw obviously here a massive gain in the amount of money people were spending at the pump. Keep in mind, things like gasoline are largely inelastic demand. That means that people are going to drive where they need to go regardless of what the prices are. You're not going to see a massive change in if gas prices go down, you're not going to see a massive change in extra gas being purchased. If gas prices go up, you're not going to see a massive change in people purchasing less gas. By and large, people are still only going to be driving where they need to drive. They're just going to be more happy or more upset about what they're paying at the pump. But take a look at online sales here. We can see that online sales slumped sharply, falling 6.4% for the month. Merchandise stores saw a gain of 5.4%. Sporting goods and electronics saw 3.3% gains. And bars and sales of food and beverages, along with bars, rose 1%. And so here we are seeing a little bit about what I've been talking about happens in countries as they enter hyperinflation. I'm not saying we're entering hyperinflation right now. I don't think we are. But when you track this, it's very visible in countries that go through hyperinflation. Lebanon right now, Turkey is getting there right now, Argentina recently, Zimbabwe recently, Venezuela recently. What happens is there's more and more money being printed and handed out, but the shortage, the deleveraging is still happening. You can't print extra resources. You can only change the way those resources are measured. You can't print more wealth. You can print more money. Money measures wealth. And so there is a actual lack of wealth in the system. And so when people go and try and spend their money, they still don't have the purchasing power necessary to get the things that they wanted before, or the things that they need. And so you revert towards Maslow's hierarchy. You start ignoring the luxuries and you start going for instead the basic necessities. You still got to put clothes on your back. You still got to clothe your family, keep a roof over your head, feed your family. So the Maslow's hierarchy, all of the purchasing power starts to shift away from the stuff that people don't need and towards the things that people do need. Those are the things that are given up very last. And we're seeing this here. Many times, the online sales are going to be the luxuries, the things that people are buying as impulse purchases, the things that people don't need, whereas things like sporting goods, electronics, you're going to see a lot of those today, in today's day and age, be a lot more of a need versus not. Now, importantly, we are also seeing inflation hitting imports. Prices on imports have risen on average by 2.6%, which is the largest monthly increase since April of 2011. It was larger than the 2.2% estimate. So we don't need to look at the dollar index, DXY, in order to understand what's going on here. The dollar is weakening versus the real stuff that people need. Doesn't matter if it's not weakening versus the few currencies that it's measured against to make up the DXY index. That doesn't matter for the average consumer. When you go to spend your dollars, the fact of the matter is that we have a massive trade deficit in the United States. Much of what we purchase, especially consumable goods, comes from overseas. And prices of stuff that comes from overseas, comes from other countries, are increasing because the dollar is becoming worth less relative to that stuff and relative to the stuff that makes that stuff, like raw commodities. And so it is essential for people to understand, hey, the dollar can go up and we can still have inflation here at home. Hey, the dollar can strengthen and we can still see imports go up in price. Those two are not things that can't happen together. Those things are in fact happening together right now. And finally, we got an initial jobless claims number that rose for the week, 185,000 jobless claims, which was an increase in 18,000, and it was above the estimate of 172,000. And so this is not something, especially like the Federal Reserve. They're looking at their dual mandates. They're saying full employment and stable prices. They're seeing cracks in the system. First of all, those are kind of opposing goals because as far as they are concerned, if you attack the jobs problem, you can drive prices up. If you try and drive prices down, you can make the jobless problem worse. And so that's what they're starting to see here. They're moving towards raising rates. They're moving towards quantitative tightening and selling assets off their balance sheet. And now their maximum employment is starting to get worse. Jobless claims are increasing because prices are still crazy high and people can't afford to live. And so people who are losing their jobs or having to move to a different job, many problems are starting to show up. Jobless claims are increasing. Now, the measure that they're looking at right now is job openings because that's the one that looks the best. But it's only a matter of time until those job openings start to not look as good as they look right now. And then the Federal Reserve will be faced with the choice of, again, should we hurt the jobs market or should we fight inflation? And it's very possible that they can't do either. And as we see more of this, we are going to see more and more money in the economy shift to the real stuff, the real goods, the commodities, gold, silver, real assets, real estate, farmland, food production, basically all the money flowing to the things that people need the most. Invest accordingly and stay hedged. Finally, I will be speaking at the Market Disruptors live conference in Dallas, May 6th through 8th. I would love to see you there. If you can join, I've got a link in the description below. As always, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.